Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I'm Jake Bennett.
And welcome to episode 188 of the North Meets South Web Podcast.
Hello, folks. How's it going? Episode 188. Hopefully, we're going to get through a show this time with no banging on walls or kids yelling. Maybe that's hopeful. Maybe that's like wishful thinking.
There'll be no banging on walls, but the
no
kids
banging
yelling.
On walls. No guarantees.
So here's the thing:
no guarantees.
The tiler just left. So I had a tiler, which is we're recording a little bit later. So the tiler came. We bought this piece of like polymer plastic, that we're putting up instead of tiling in the laundry where we've just had that redone. And so I went to pick this thing up and I measured the car. I was like, this is not going to fit in the car. So I borrowed my cousin's trailer and drove down to the hardware store, picked it up, and it's in this big box. It's 2.6 meters by 760 meters. So I don't know what that is in feet. You can figure that out later. And
how many meters?
2.6. So like
it's 8 feet, eight and a half feet.
Yeah.
8.5 feet.
Yep. By about 2.5 feet, give or take. So I've got this big box and I'm carrying it. It's not very, 7 kilos, which is, 15 pounds or thereabouts, and carrying this out to the thing and put it on the trailer. And the trailer is one of these big 6x4 trailers, and it's got these cages on it. So I've like lifted this box up to slide it into the back, and the whole thing has just flopped, like just bent in half. And I've gone,
nope, no good.
No, so this is not a rigid. I was very nervous for a second there that I just broke it, but there was no cracking sounds or anything. I was thinking it was a very rigid piece, but it's only like 4 mil thick, and I'm not doing that conversion for you. So it's very thin, but it's like a plastic ruler. I don't know if you ever had plastic rulers.
It's 1.48 inches.
Yeah.
Thick, 1.4 inch and a half. Okay.
No, 4 millimeters. 4 millimeters. It's very
4
thin.
millimeters.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So not even tiny.
So it's very, very thin. So anyway, I got it home, took it, opened up the box, and it's all in one piece. It was fine. So the tilers had put it all up, and they were saying it looks great. It's very light. It's very durable. They put it on the wall, very easy. They just cut a rectangle, stuck it all on there, and then they tried to drill into it to put the PowerPoint on. And because it was only a very thin piece, like maybe 2 inches between the edge of the piece, like the main piece, and where the PowerPoint was going, it just cracked. So all this talk about all this durability, and like it was on the wall, they'd siliconed it on, it was ready to go, and they had to take the whole thing off. They're like, we'll replace it for you, no worries. So we'll see how that goes. But man, so they're not here. So it's just the screaming kids that we'll have to contend with when they come back.
No worries. Screaming kids are welcome. Welcome here. I'm
also sitting partially in the dark because my light won't turn on. I don't know why. The other day when we had someone working in the family room, the light just turned on. Like whatever RF thing they were using out there triggered the light in here, and now it won't turn on anymore, which I've just realized.
Odd.
So I mean, I don't think anyone actually watches the podcast on YouTube, so it's
it's very few.
Anyway, so that has been my last little period of time here, but we're here. We're doing some things. We actually had some things to talk about, you and I. But before we get to that, what about you? You said you got a busy day tomorrow. You probably had you've always got busy days.
It's been, you know what, honestly, I feel like since I feel like the start of December started, and I don't feel like we've stopped yet since then. I keep thinking like, this is like next week is going to be nope.
This next week,
it's just not like we've got family sickness, we've got sports, we've got all sorts of stuff. Now, here's the deal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this because I'm complaining. Like this is one of my favorite times of the year. It's so fun. Like I love watching all those kids' sports games, and like it's great. It's just spring break's around the corner. So I think it's going to be good timing just to kind of get out of here. We're going to go see some friends for a little bit, go do some hiking, go kind of get some warm weather. So it's going to be good. Yeah, I'm excited for that. So right around the corner here. So going to be fun. But yeah, we did have a couple things we wanted to talk about. There was like Worktrees with Claude we were going to talk about. I wanted to talk about.
You were having some problems with Worktrees. Is it?
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
Let's talk about it. Specific thing, but it was a Worktree specific thing, I think. So tell me.
Yeah.
About this.
So when you use, so we've talked about Worktrees before, right? And there was in fact a whole thing last year at LaraCon US talking about like tmux and Worktrees and lazy Git and all this stuff, which was cool, super great. But Claude, if you're using Claude, you can do Claude -- worktree, and it will just spawn up a new little work tree for you. And that way you can work on multiple features in parallel, which is super cool, really nice. Now, the way that it does work trees is that it puts a child work tree directory inside of the main directory that you're working in.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Don't do
Yes.
that.
So that, I think, is the challenge. It's not that.
Yeah.
That is the challenge. So maybe that's not the way you do work trees, and maybe it's not the way that most of you do work trees. But if you use Claude -- worktree, I believe it puts like a .worktree directory inside of the directory. Now, here's the thing I could do. I could probably just like in my PHP, because PhpStorm is specifically the problem I've been having. The problem I had was that when I do that, it scans that directory, and then it, like when I go to like
root.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it goes inside the project root. Exactly. So what happens now is I go to my controller, and now it says there's 3 instances of my controller. Which class do you want? It's like, no, there's not 3 instances. I've got my main one, and I've got 2 worktree versions of it, which is annoying. But also like with Vim or with like Sublime or VS Code, whatever, you could just sort of CD into that worktree directory and pop open in that editor right there. No big deal. Super lightweight, no big deal. With PhpStorm, you can't really do that. You have to set up a whole new project for a sub worktree.
Okay. Yeah. So this is not. I don't think this is a PhpStorm specific issue. It's just the way, because I assume the way that you've done this is that you've already got your repository checked out, and you just went into your repository and you just did it like Claude -- worktree, and so by default it's going to go. Yeah. So with worktrees, you need to shift everything down a directory, right? So your worktrees. So where you would have like.
So what
in your home directory /code/ Wilbur, and that previously would have had your entire repository checked out in Wilbur. Well, now Wilbur then becomes your worktree root, and all of your worktrees exist as children of that directory. So you're going
now, do you have a primary root? So like, let's just be very specific here. I have an application called Wilbur Pay, right? So it's in Jacob Bennett /sites/ Wilbur Pay is where the code is checked out. That's what the repository is. That's where all my brand, that's where everything is. That's where the .git file lives. So you're suggesting so that's how I do it. You're saying that Wilbur Pay now becomes a parent directory to something else. Do I have my git my .git file should be shifted into another one called like a folder underneath Wilbur Pay called root or something, or how would you do that?
So you would have there's 2 ways of doing it. The default way, so I would move Wilbur Pay into like Wilbur Pay -old, and so go into cd Jake Bennett /sites, and then you would check out a bare clone of that. So you do a git checkout or git clone -- bare. And what that will do is they'll set up a directory with the worktree structure in it.
Interesting.
And then when you do a Claude -- worktree, it should create your worktrees within there. Now, the way that I do it typically, and the way that Arbor sets it up, because it's the way that I do it, is it will create a dot worktree, I think, or a .arbor, whatever the directory is, I forget, but it will create a hidden directory, so just a dot directory in that root, so that when you create worktrees, they're all folders within there, and it kind of hides away all of the inner workings of the Git worktree stuff. If you do a bare checkout, you have like a refs folder and a Git folder, and it kind of all blends together, and it makes it harder to find like your fix branch and your feature branch and your whatever branch. But I try and keep it all in that same thing. So the reason PhpStorm is doing that, because you've got a Git repository checked out inside of a Git repository, effectively. So you've got a folder in a folder, and it tries to recurse up to find like, where is the root artisan in this tree? So it looks in the current directory and it goes, oh, but I found another one up here. So we must, and it goes that way. So
it's just
you
like
want all of your work trees to be at the same level, not nested within each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're saying that like when but of course for you, do you have like a project set up in Vim for yourself in Neovim that's like, hey, this is for my app? Yeah. So you just like cd into that directory in vim./ right? And then you're good.
Yeah. In that
So for
context,
me,
like I don't know how PhpStorm handles Worktree switching. I guess within a
it
'cause you've got
doesn't.
like
That's the thing. I don't think it does. It doesn't have first class
so
support for
yeah, so
work trees at all.
each feature would then be its own project in PhpStorm, where because I've got
Correct.
all of these folders as siblings of each other, I can just cd in and then open Vim, cd in and open
Yeah.
Vim. There's no
No, this
it's all
is
just ready
that's
to go.
the sucky thing. So PhpStorm doesn't really have great support for work trees.
Mm.
And so you can check out other branches, no problem. It's got first support for branches, of course, right? You just switch around, no problem. But with work trees, it's not super mature. It doesn't work very well with that. So I feel like a change is
Time to
coming.
take out Vim.
Yeah, I mean, like I like Vim. I don't mind Vim. It's just I'm not proficient with Vim. Although to be honest, like I'm writing less and less code these days, and so it's not necessarily like I need PhpStorm. It's just what I'm familiar with, you know. And so anyway, it's just a comfort thing. I'm gonna figure out eventually a way to do that. But yeah, that was my initial frustration. Was like, well, I'm working on my main feature branch that I'm working on, right? And that's fine. And then some other thing comes in and I'm like, I'll just spin up a little agent to work on that. So I Claude Worktree in my same thing. And so then I go back into my PhpStorm on the one that I'm actively working on, and it's getting these weird conflict sort of like, wait, what is this class that you're doing? There's multiples of it. And I'm like, no, that I don't want to do that. But it also has introduced this problem where it's like, okay, if I do need to go in and modify manually something that has changed inside of one of the other agents, then I have to just Vim into there. And it's just a weird experience. So I'm just trying to figure it out. I just started playing with it. It was very helpful because I could have Claude spinning on a couple different pieces at the same time, which was great. But yeah, just working through a couple paper cut items on that. So
yeah, I mean, Google's AI tells me this should all be possible. That like it should ask you to open existing Worktree. I don't know what that looks like in practice. There's a plugin as well. There's a Git Worktree Hub plugin to manage worktrees via a dedicated tool window, allowing you to create, delete, and switch
inside of PhpStorm.
In PhpStorm, yeah.
Yeah.
Did
all
you
right,
hear
I'll
the
have to check
slamming
that
door?
out.
The children are home
I
and
did.
screaming
They're
hysterically
home.
straight away.
They're
I
home.
don't know
Here we
what
are.
it is. Normally they come home and they're quiet, right? But when I'm recording, they come home and they start screaming. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Meetings, recordings, doesn't matter. They just know.
Yep.
I think it's because we've instilled this new, like when you come home from school, you've got to finish your homework before you can have the iPad or watch TV rule. And we started this yesterday because it got to bedtime last night and Eli goes, I need to read this book, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. I said, you've been home for 4.5 hours. Like, he's like, but I'll be in trouble. I said, but you've been home for 4.5 hours. So I said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to do homework when we get home and then you can have the fun things. And I assume because I hear a slamming door, and that's usually an Eli thing, is slamming the door. I've told him. It's funny. Before we move on, I had told him many, many times over a very long period of time, if you keep slamming your door, I'm going to take the door off the hinges. I'm going to take your door away. You're not going to have a door. And one day he just liked it and he slammed it really hard that like things rattled on the walls adjacent. I went in there. I didn't say anything. I took a screwdriver. I went into his room and I just took the door off its hinges. And he was very upset by that. I said, I've been telling you for like basically the entire time you've been old enough to walk, not to do it, you know? Yeah.
So what did he do? Was he like?
I took it off for a day and then I put it back on before he went to bed that night. But I was like, look, mate, you've been warned so many times, like literally 3 years of warnings here.
Yep. Lesson learned. He'll tell his kids that story.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, my dad took the door off his hinges because I slammed it.
Did your parents growing up ever tell you, like, if you didn't eat your dinner, did they threaten you with the starving children in Africa? Like, there are kids in Africa that don't have food. Did you ever get that growing up?
I think I heard that. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I heard that though. Let me think about this for a minute. Like the way that it was at our house was sort of like, listen, this is what we're eating. If you're wanting to eat, this is what you're going to eat too. Because we didn't have like a lot of snacks or anything around the house or anything like that. So it was like, if you don't want to go hungry, if you don't want to go to bed hungry, this is what we're eating. So eat up. And if you didn't, then it was like, okay, well, you're not getting anything else. So it was just, we ate our food, you know? And I remember that's just how it was. So
yeah,
maybe some kids have a stronger will, I guess. You know what I mean? Where they're just willing to starve, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ree's just so worried that if they miss dinner one night, that they're going to starve to death overnight while they sleep. I'm like, they'll be fine. Like they will learn from the hungry, you know, the rumbly tummy that they. But no, the amount of times that it's like, I want, we're having this for dinner. Yeah, I want to have that. And then you give it to them and it's like, I don't like the taste of this. Can I have something else? It's like, and it's like, they end up with a
Yeah.
Nutella sandwich or some cereal or some toast
Yeah.
or something. And it's like, I'm not making multiple dinners. It's like I'm already making a meal for me, a meal for Liv, and a meal for Eli. And like Eli generally now is starting to eat more of what I'm doing. So it's 2 meals, but it's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I know. Agreed. Yeah, I know, man. It's tough. It is. Kids are finicky in particular. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's definitely hard.
It hurts me the most when they like specifically ask for something unprompted and you make it for them and then they tell you it's disgusting and they don't want it. And it's like, you asked for this, you're eating it. So
Yep, exactly.
And I said, if you want anything else, you can ask Mum. She won't let you starve.
That's right. Yep, she'll feed you. She'll feed you.
Worktrees,
yeah, it'll only take a couple times.
Yep,
Worktrees is gone. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later if I play with that. Hey, couple things real quick here. Yeah, I want to knock like check a couple things off the list. We've been playing with Meilisearch recently. So we were using Algolia, and then we realized it was actually getting quite expensive. The number of queries we were making against Algolia was, and I mean, when I say expensive, I'm talking about like a couple $100 a month, right? Not that expensive, but it's like, also there are free alternatives to this. I was like, I wonder how long. We already had a Meilisearch instance set up. And so the cool thing about this is that like the Meilisearch instances that you can set up yourself, you kind of have to manage them all through like a CLI, which is fine, but that's like the price you pay, right? It's like, hey, if you want to manage it in a web interface, you have to buy the premium product with Meilisearch. If you want to manage it locally, that's fine, but you got to manage it through the CLI. Well, that used to be a pain in the neck, but now thanks to Claude, it's a piece of cake, right? Anything you want to do, you're just like, hey, how to do this? And it just gives you, here's the curl command and you run it and you're done. Super simple, really nice. So we moved all of our Algolia stuff over to Meilisearch, and Algolia was so generous to donate their front end, components to hook up with our Meilisearch instance, which is so nice. And so basically the experience didn't change at all, but we just dropped a $200 bill a month. So Meilisearch is really, really good. It's come such a long way. And I would highly suggest checking that out if you have not. It's really simple to install, and it's also quite like efficient. Like it's not taken up. I've got this running on a like nothing server, and it's indexing like millions of records for me, millions and millions of records. And so if you run and scout anything like whatever, use Meilisearch. It's good stuff. Really, really good. Okay. Secondly, I just found this out. Did you know that you can, if you've ever seen the Google Street View, you can blur like your business or your house out if you want.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know you could do that. Like I know that it can happen. Like I know they detect and they blur number plates and things like that, but I didn't know that you could blur
a whole house. It's like a fog of war sort of deal where like you go buy something. I'm not kidding. That's what it looks like.
That's pretty
I was looking something up today and I was like, why is this all blurry? Well, it's because the school or whatever where we were driving or what, I was trying to find directions. It was, they had decided to say like, nope, you don't get to see our school from the outside unless you're actually here. And so, I know I don't get it either, but it's like, I was like, what is this? Cool. And I was like, is this a thing? Is this a thing? Yep. Yeah.
Like you can blur it on the map, Google. But if you go there, you're there, right? So
Right. But that's
it's
the
a
thing.
School. It's a public place.
I don't know. I guess it's sort of like they didn't want people to be able to plan. Sort of like I don't know. I'm not sure. I have no idea. I'm sure it's a security thing, but it's like
probably,
you can
over there, over here, not a problem here, but over there, woo.
Yeah.
Sad.
Anyway, But you can request it, which I thought was just interesting. I was like, really? Huh. That's kind of cool. Okay, last thing I wanted to talk about before we jump into other stuff. OIDC. Have you ever used this? OpenID Connect? You ever heard of this? It's sort of like, it's not SAML.
I've heard of it.
You know what I mean? But it's like, it's sort of like that for connecting services. So like connecting S3 to your GitHub Actions, right? Here's the problem. I have AirDrop running, and I want to be able to push assets from my GitHub Actions up to AirDrop. Okay, I have a single set of credentials, right, that I use for my application that have access to this S3 bucket that I use to push GitHub Actions stuff to, and then I then also, if I was not being wise about it, I would use those same credentials in production. So the only problem with that is like if somebody steals that token that's available in GitHub Actions, which I've just got stored in some secret variable inside of my GitHub Actions repository sort of deal. If somehow I get some malicious sort of supply chain attack where I pull in some cache version that just starts dumping out env variables from my GitHub Actions, well, they now have my token, right? And guess how often that token gets rotated?
Never.
Like once a year, right? Probably once a year.
Yeah. When you get this, when you get the
when we do
security
our
audit
SOC
come
2 audit.
through.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Have you rotated your tokens? Yes, I have. I just did it.
Definitely did.
So the cool thing is that, like, if you're running GitHub Actions, you can do things like, I think it's called GH token or something like that, which will basically
the
give
GitHub
you
CLI
like,
is
that's
just
right.
there. It just all works. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you
I
can
found this
inside of your GitHub Actions, you can say, give me a short-lived token that's only good for the period of time that this action is going to be running. So like, for example, if I need to authenticate Composer in order to pull down a private repository that belongs to our organization, I need to have a GitHub access token to do that. So I just run GH token as a secret inside of my YAML file, and it pulls it. It generates one and pulls it for me, and then it's dead as soon as that runner is done. So
it's pretty good.
if that gets leaked, no problem, because it's only active for like 30 seconds. Okay, OIDC allows you to do something similar for when you need to connect to S3. So what it will do is OIDC will issue you a token. I think the smallest lifetime that you can give it is like an hour, but still, even at that, the token is dead after an hour. So they can't really do anything with it unless they caught it right away and were able to then use that token. And of course, you would hope that, like, if you're using a token like that has any sort of access, you would really limit the access of the token that you're using inside of your GitHub action to only be able to maybe write to a very specific location, so the the impact is mitigated for if that token was leaked. But it's something I've been looking into recently for our GitHub Actions. I'll let you know how we get along with that in coming episodes. But it's something definitely to look into. There's all sorts of tutorials and things on this. But this was something I was recently like, oh boy, that seems like a security thing that we should really tighten up here.
Yeah.
So looking into that, using OIDC, and it does not look like it's super difficult to do. It's something that's becoming more and more standard between these different platforms. So you basically establish trust between the two platforms, and then it'll handle the token exchange for you, which is really, really cool. So pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, just before we move on, you kind of blew by it, but the GitHub CLI is just like, it's just available inside of your GitHub Actions, and it's
wait, I did not know that. Is it really?
Yeah. I found this out when I was building Arbor, and it was, we're trying to figure out how to build the workflow to do the like homebrew release and all of this kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so the GitHub CLI is pre-installed on all GitHub hosted runners, allowing you to script it directly in your workflows. To use it, you must provide a GitHub token with the necessary scopes via the GH token environment variable. And then, it's just available. So you just, you put the secret into your secrets file and set it in the environment, and then off you go. Then you can just run the GH CLI to do, comment on issues, do whatever you need to do inside of your actions and your workflows and things.
Also, one other thing here is you don't actually have to put a GH token in the secrets of the repository.
Or it should be just available.
It's just available. That's that token I'm talking about, that it just generates it for you at the runtime of the action. It's just available as a secret, like sort of globally to any of your GitHub actions. So I think it's secrets.gh rather than like variables or something like that.
Yes. Secrets.githubtoken is available, and then you attach it. Yeah, you put that into your env as gh_token, which then becomes available to the GitHub CLI. So, so the GitHub CLI needs it. It looks for that token.
So what are the things that you're using what are the things that you're using the GH CLI for? Because that's great. I did not know that existed either. That's really cool.
I will tell you. If I look in the Arbor repository, because I didn't write any of that code. So I know that it was like part of the release thing, and we're trying to, because I've got like just a generic homebrew tab, and so we've got to publish into the homebrew tab the like the SHA of the latest release, the file paths, like the URLs to download it and all of that kind of stuff. So inside of our release YAML, like our release workflow, is it the release workflow? We do a go build, we do all this stuff, we do that. uploads some artifacts, and it creates releases. We use it to like set the annotation to create the release file. Here we go. Trigger homebrew formula update. So this uses it dispatches an update formula event to that repository, and so you need the GitHub the GH token or the GitHub token to then publish across repositories within the context of the thing. So
okay, you got to tell me about this. Hold on, I don't get this. So you're saying you could trigger an event in a single repository that can then be listened for on other repositories?
Yes. Yep.
What? Hold on.
So like
did not know this was a thing.
All of your GitHub workflows, they have like where is it? It's got a thing in here that you can specify like this applies to like a tag, or this applies to a push, or to a whatever. So you can then send your
a pull request or whatever.
Yeah. So you can send your own event type. So from Arbor, we have like a release workflow, which does the building, the tagging. It sets whatever it does. It writes the log files. It writes the artifacts and etc. And then at the end of the process, it uses the GitHub API to send a post request to the Homebrew tap repository. And in the Homebrew tap repository, which I'll have a look at here, we then have a workflow configured, which then is triggered by that event. And it's an update formula. So this it listens specifically on repository dispatch for a type of update formula. And then it will go through and it will update. So it actually goes and then updates the Ruby file. It does a set across the whole thing. It updates the path to the latest version of Arbor. It will calculate the SHA sums and write them into a file so that those checksums are available. And then it goes and updates. So it just runs a set over it and writes a commit, so that within seconds of me tagging a new release in GitHub for Arbor, it will then go and update the Homebrew tap so that I can then do a Homebrew upgrade and get the latest version down.
Okay, so, I'm gonna speak this back to you. Okay,
speak it back.
You have a repo for Arbor that is written in Go. You make a new set of changes. You manually tag a release, or when it's merged to main, it tags a release for you.
I tag a merge, and then I tag a release. I've got like a...
You manually tag the release.
Yeah, I've got like a agent skill to do it.
Okay. When the release is tagged, then as a part of that process, you have a GitHub action that listens for a tag and then runs a script. Like runs a GitHub Actions YAML file script thing. Yes. At the end of that script, you then dispatch an event called repository update formula or something like that.
It's just like update. It's an event. Yeah. It's a HTTP request that goes using the GH CLI to the API, and it sends an event type of update formula.
Now, where is it sending that event to? To your cask or your
the Homebrew tap? So the Homebrew tap is just another repository.
Yeah. So you send the event specifically to that repository. Got it. Okay. I didn't know if it was like a pub sub sort of thing where like you just publish the event, but no, you have to be specific about like, I'm sending it to this repository. Here's the event. Okay. And then that repository itself has a on update formula event, and then it runs its own YAML file task that does the other things. Sick. Okay, that's interesting. So the reason I'm asking and find that very interesting is because we have a lot of internal libraries that we use. Like we have Composer, packages and stuff. And so when we make updates to those, it's super annoying to have to go through and go do the updates for all of the repositories that use them. It would be super cool if I just said, hey, when I tag a new release for this, go publish an event to these 15 repositories, and then they would just have a YAML file that would say, make a new pull request that basically updates the Composer version of it and then does whatever it needs to do. That would be pretty sick. Interesting.
And
Okay.
even better, just ask Claude to do it, and it'll figure it out.
Yes, exactly. Right. I mean, this is what it's written for, right? This is what this is made for.
This
I
kind
also
of infrastructure stuff that you
yes,
need,
it's so good at
but
this.
you don't know, you don't know how to do it, and so you just say, I want to do this, and it'll just go, I can do this and this, and it figures all this stuff out. And it ran into issues with tokens and all because it was trying to put the tokens into the the formula. It was using secrets, but it was trying to put them, and I was like, hang on a minute. And this is where we people that are actually developers, as opposed to everyone else that's just vibing things, we would look at that and we go, hang on, this gets echoed into the output of the job, which means that token is going to become publicly visible. And I was like, don't do that. It was like, oh yeah, it is going to do that. Let me find another way. And it goes and does its X a web search and figures out that the GitHub token, and it does all this stuff. So yeah, it's very useful.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So two things I learned. Number one, GHCLI is available in any task runner that GitHub uses, which is really cool. Any GitHub task runner. Yeah, yep. Very, very cool. I like that. Number two, so maybe three things. Number two, you have to use your GitHub token, the secrets GitHub token, in order to be able to pass that to the GHCLI so that you can utilize all the functions you'd normally use with the GHCLI, but with the credentials that you have. That's two. Number three is that you can publish events directly to a repository. It's like a webhook, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So like a webhook. And then you can trigger GitHub actions based on that little webhook, essentially.
Yeah. Yep. And that way, really that all of the preceding stuff has been done. So this does, it does a checkout code, it does a version check, it looks for the previous tag, it finds the tag annotation, builds a release body. So it would go and write the changelog to go into the release notes. It'll download the artifacts, generate checksums of those files. It'll create the release, and then it goes and triggers the homebrew update. So everything kind of just cascades all the way through.
Yeah, I guess I have seen something like this. I just didn't realize this is what Wilbur Powery was doing when he did this. We have a GitHub action that sort of runs as a dependent part of something else, and so I'm just curious how he's doing it now. Yeah, on workflow dispatch is what he's doing.
Yep.
Yeah, workflow dispatch. So is that what you're using as well? Workflow dispatch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's in.
And then do you have to specify?
Repository.
Yeah, do you have to specify the name of something like that, or is it just you?
The event _ type field that you post from one repository then becomes the type that is listened to. This is a repository dispatch, but same kind of thing. Just across repositories as opposed to within workflows.
Gotcha.
But yeah, handy. I'll put links to the GitHub CLI in workflows and
you do you do GH workflow run? Is that what you do or no? No, I guess that's only if you were doing it in the same. Yeah. GH workflow run is something you can do if you're within a GitHub action, you want to run another one of your GitHub actions. So you can do that. You can trigger another set of something else from another one. So you just run GH workflow run and then specify the name of the YAML file that you want to run.
Whereas I had I just ended up setting up a generic homebrew tap, because then I could put whatever it's exactly at the moment. But if I decide to create some other thing later, then it all just goes into one place.
Super cool. I learned a lot from this already. Thank you. Nice. That's really helpful. I think the other thing pretty cool.
The other thing that we should talk about, because we'd spoken about talking about it during the week, is that you had mentioned this before, and I kind of took it on board, and it was in the back of my brain until I was doing some stuff recently. And I found that in this work that I'm doing at the moment, I'm creating lots of enums, and lots of the enums have a label and a description field. Label and a description. And the way that typically this is done is you create a public label method that returns a string and a public description method that returns a string, and you'll do a match, and you'll just return match, so $this, and then you'd iterate through all of the members of your enum. So if it was like a post status, you'd have draft, published, deleted, scheduled, right? Those four things. And then the label might be, you just uppercase the thing, and so it's not as useful there. But the description is this is a draft post, this is a published post, this post is published, is scheduled to be published later, this post has been deleted, right? The four statuses. And so you find this repeated pattern. You're creating this thing everywhere, and you could like create an interface and say that this is a describable or whatever. But I noticed in looking through the ArchTechX enums package, which I was already using because it gives you some traits to publish like options and values and things like that. So instead of having to array map and do an array values and get the cases and the labels and all that kind of stuff, it just does all of this for you. I noticed in there that they had this other functionality around handling metadata on your things. So if I pull up this enums thing, they've got this notion of metadata, and this trait lets you add metadata to enum cases, which is exactly what this is. So instead of defining a label method everywhere and a public method, essentially you create your own attributes that extend from this package's meta property. And then you would just say at the top of your enum, so above the enum post status, you would say pound square bracket meta, and then you would pass a comma separated list of class strings, so description and label. And this then allows you to just annotate the members of your enum. So you could do a label and a description attribute, and then you can dynamically access them using a label method and a description method. And it's all just annotated. Everything's together. You don't have to create methods and maps and all of this kind of stuff. You just attach it to all of your enum members, which I thought was very useful, especially because I found myself labeling and describing all of these enum cases all over the place. And I thought, well, rather than creating all of these methods and having to keep the methods up to date, whatever else, and doing these things, define the member up here and then define the thing in the match statement down there, have it all together. So ArchTechX /enum. I think this is what's his name? This is Samuel Stansel. That
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is his.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the couple things that I really like about this pattern. So with the method way of doing things, like you said, you kind of have to keep it up to date. So for example, if you started out with 3 backed cases and you have methods for both of those, and then someone adds a 4th, it's not immediately obvious that fourth option did not get added.
Yeah,
to,
and then you end up
to the list
runtime with runtime exceptions because you call, and then you've got an unmatched case in there. And you've got no
exactly,
default.
and it's like yeah, so it's like you have to have a test or something like that, companion test that basically says go over the cases and make sure that these are all there. So it's just it's a lot of extra boilerplate to really sort of cover yourself and make sure that you have all those defined, right? Whereas with this, it's or you just end up literally not having a label for it, right? Maybe it doesn't even throw an error. It just like you said, give me all the labels, and it's like it doesn't have a label for the new one that you added because you just assume like, oh, this is the enum. I'm sure it's handling it somewhere else, and you don't add it to the method. So with this, when you define one of these, it's in this package specifically anyway. It's required that each one of the cases has a defined item for that. So if you add description, every case has to have a description, and if it does not, it's going to cause a problem for you. Same thing with like color, right? So it keeps it updated. It enforces consistency across the board. But lastly, when you are asking somebody to extend it, they're going to very likely see that all of them have these same fields, these same meta fields. And so when they duplicate, it's very obvious that this is something that they're going to have to do, right? All the information is co-located with the case. And so it's very, very obvious to future developers that this is something you need to do. And we have used this recently, like in so many places, but the main one is in the way that we define permissions for each of our applications. So in each of our applications, we have permissions, and then there's a case, and above each one of them, we have a special attribute called AD group. So Active Directory group. And then what we do is we use that AD group to match up to a group in an Active Directory, and then that Active Directory security group gives the particular permission for the application. And so it's all just right next to each other. Very simple, super clean. It's awesome. And so I love this pattern, and we use it all the time. But this definitely makes it easier.
Yeah. I think one of the dangers of the match statement is, especially in the enum context, and it's been me in the past before, you have an enum and you know that it can only exist in 4 different states. It can be draft, scheduled, published, deleted. Those are the 4 members. So you get into this habit of when you do these match statements, you match on only the 4 things that are there. In a label and a description, only the 4 things that are there. And then at some point in the future, because you've only matched on those 4, you've added a 5th, job done, PR done, review, whoops, we're reviewing too much code because of AI, we missed it. Goes into production and something tries to call label and suddenly there's no value there in your match statement. And then because you have an unmatched match arm and there's no default, it goes blammo. So one thing that I would suggest to anyone using these match statements, is particularly in this enum case, is that you always put a default that gives you a sensible, whether it's an empty string, whether it's an explicit exception that gets thrown, you want to catch that specific. You don't want like a generic unmatched arm exception, because that doesn't really help you. You want it to say like, in your post status enum, member blah does not have a label defined, and you would get a specific error and you can go and catch that. The other thing that I would suggest in this context is to always use like a sensible default. We've got like, and look at it from the perspective of, if you've got, say, 6 different members in there and 4 of them return true and 2 return false. Well, I'd put the 2 that return false at the top and I would just default to true. So whatever is most likely to be your default fallback or your safety net. Like if I added a new enum member and I needed the behavior of this method to, err on the side of safety, whatever that situation is. If it's, okay, most things should return false except for these 2 exceptional cases, then the default would be false. If most things should return true, except for these 2 exceptional cases, then your default would be false. And to follow that through. So just 2 things that I've observed in the last week, building out some tooling for a to be announced. Well, actually, maybe not even announced, but it's just some stuff that I've been working on recently. It's been very interesting.
They're very powerful. I mean, we used to use a class with constants that we could use, the double colon sort of to reference it. So we've been slowly like replacing those over time as Laravel has become much more friendly to enums everywhere. It's so easy to define enums. And it's so easy to check them as well. It used to be sort of annoying, but it's like in all the form requests, check to make sure it's an enum, and then just pass them through. Now you got a case, and it's you got like a typed property. It's so handy. So highly suggest using those enums everywhere you can, and then using these attributes is really nice. Now the reason, the one thing I will say, defining attributes on your own that can behave this way is sort of annoying. So the fact that you can do this with this package, all you have to do is you just create a class that is the name of the attribute, and then you just extend this meta property class, and that meta property class is what sort of has all of the reflection object stuff in there. Yeah, exactly. Handles all that magic in there. And so just really simple. So if you've not done that before, this is a really great way to do that. I think it's worth kind of pulling back the covers on it and going looking at that meta property and kind of seeing what it is doing underneath there. It's not that bad, but it's just annoying to have to write yourself every time. So cool package. There's a lot of other cool stuff that this package does as well. Like it will give you like this idea of like, give me all the string labels, and it'll just cast them all to strings, and then you can give me an options method, and there's a bunch of cool stuff on this one. So really good package. Good find there. I love this. Really like it.
Sweet. All right,
dude. Anything else you want to talk about? Or are we good?
That's all I got.
That's all you got? All right. There's like so much more we could talk about, but I can't believe we've been talking for 43 minutes already. That went fast. It sure does. Okay, folks, episode 188. Find show notes for this one at northmeetsouth.audio/188. Please rate up the podcatcher. Please rate up the podcast in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. And of course, always reach out to us on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, any of the places, at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda, or at North South Audio. All right, folks. If you have not gotten your Laracon tickets yet, I hope to see you there in Boston. It's going to be a banger.
Are you one of those people that haven't bought tickets?
Hey, I'm talking to the people right now. Okay?
Glass houses. Glass houses.
It's not about me.
Hot kettle black. Pick a metaphor.
Hey, I'm not telling people I'm just saying, I'm just reminding the people, if you haven't gotten yours yet, you should definitely get one.
Get them. I'll definitely be there, and Jake will probably be there.
I'll be there. I will, dude. I will definitely be there. It's happening. I'm not going to not be there. We'll be there. All right, dude. Good seeing you, man. Take it easy, everybody. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Bye.